So I came across this article the other day entitled Native Hawaiians Flock to Las Vegas for Affordable Living. And while Las Vegas is considered by many in Hawaii to be the ninth island, this article had little to do with casinos and more to do about the realities of why local families, particularly Native Hawaiian families, are leaving for the mainland. When I was in college on the mainland, I often heard people ask me, if you're from Hawaii, why would you want to move away? Well, this article illustrates why many choose or are forced to leave Hawaii. So I want to go over the article and share some of my thoughts as a local in Hawaii, someone who was born and raised here and currently lives here with my wife and young sons. I'll have a link to the article in the video description, and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Kona Purdy never wanted to live anywhere but Hawaii. As a Native Hawaiian, he wanted his children to grow up as he did, rooted in their culture and nourished by the mountains and ocean. But raising a family in Hawaii meant squeezing 9 people into a 4-bedroom house, rented with extended family in Waipahu. It felt cramped, but the Purdys accepted that this was the price to survive in their homeland. We stuffed ourselves in one room, Purdy said of his 4-member family's living arrangements. Man, 9 people in a 4-bedroom house? Man, and in Waipahu, I mean, that's kind of hard. And with 4 of them in 1 bedroom, I completely understand. That's pretty close to our situation here because we have a 1 bedroom and we have 2 young kids. We all end up sleeping in the same bedroom. But what's kind of sad here is the Purdys accepted that this was the price to survive in their homeland. And I think a lot of people don't understand that when you live in that type of situation, which is very common, it often is about surviving and not necessarily enjoying or thriving in Hawaii. Because when you think about surviving, it's not like you have margins for error, margins financially or in other areas. It's just so tight, so stressed, and I really think it impacts someone's quality of life. Their share of the monthly rent was $2,300. When rent was increased, the Purdys realized that they could no longer afford to live in Hawaii. I was so busy working trying to make ends meet, he said. We never took our kids out to the beach. We didn't go hiking. Now, I don't know what the rents go for in Waipahu these days, but man, if that was their share, $2,300, and the house must be pretty expensive. Because I'm thinking, right, there's 4 of them out of 9 people. So roughly they'd be paying maybe half the rent. So you know this house is going for at least $5,000 a month. And it's sad that once the rent went up, they were basically priced out of living there. And I totally understand how they feel being so busy trying to work and trying to make ends meet that you really don't get to enjoy the beach as much as you'd like or even go out hiking. I think there's this misconception that when you live in Hawaii, like really live here, that you just get to go to the beach every single day and everything is either a beach, a luau, or a mountain hike. And for some people it is like that. They have the luxury of going to the beach all the time. But I also think that there's a lot of locals here who just don't go to the beach. And that was how I grew up. I barely went to the beach, maybe once a year. And as I got older, I probably didn't go to the beach for several years. I never felt like I was missing out on anything. Instead, I'd go hiking, and I used to go hiking a lot more. But now with 2 kids, kind of hard to go hiking, but I did used to go at least once a month, which was great. But it is sad that that's the reality for a lot of local families here. Too busy to be able to make that time to go and enjoy some of the things, especially if you're working multiple jobs. And for those of us who don't work multiple jobs, it's still pretty tough. It's increasingly common for Hawaii residents to be priced out of the Aloha State, where the median price for a single family home topped $900,000 during the pandemic. On Oahu, the median price is more than $1 million. That's one of the things that really baffled me. And I mean, I guess it's just economics, but it was really hard seeing that we were going through one of the hardest economic times here in Hawaii, particularly because the tourism industry were isolated, and with the restrictions, there wasn't a lot happening. I don't know about where you're from, but in Hawaii during the pandemic, we took it pretty hard. I mean, tourism is our main economic driver, and it was basically shut down. I mean, we shut down the state from everyone, and we suffered for it economically. It was tough. We had federal help, which was good, and there was some state help, which was nice. But for the most part, a lot of people lost their jobs. And yet, during this exact same time, housing prices went up so much. And you'd think it'd be the opposite. And I understand, yeah, there's low interest rates and just trying to get the whole economy going. But it was so difficult seeing the housing prices just continued to go up and up and up as more and more people came and bought places, and all locals too. But a lot of homes just were flying off the market so quickly because the interest rates were so good. And now that interest rates have risen up a little bit, the market has slowed down here. I'm still waiting for the prices to go down, but I don't think they're gonna go down anytime soon. Many residents work in low-wage service jobs, and the financial strain is especially significant for Hawaii's indigenous people. A state analysis published last year showed that a single person working 40 hours a week would need to earn $18 an hour to pay for housing and other necessities in Hawaii. But the state minimum wage is currently $12 an hour. I don't want to go too deeply into the whole minimum wage issue, but it is pretty tough. I don't know how people make it with minimum wage, even if they were to have $18 an hour. Because according to my math, that comes out to $37,440 a year with the $18 an hour that they say that you would need to survive. I don't know too many people that are surviving off of 37 grand a year, but if they are, they're definitely getting government help. And nothing wrong with getting government help. I mean, I used to get government help when I was back in Oregon and I was working 3 part-time minimum wage jobs. It was tough, but let's not kid ourselves here. 18 bucks an hour, it's not really gonna cut it. Many, like the Purdy's, have headed to Las Vegas. According to 2021 population estimates from the US Census Bureau, the biggest growth of Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander populations was in Clark County, Nevada, which includes Las Vegas, and Sacramento County, California. The biggest decline of Native Hawaiian residents was in Honolulu. So the Las Vegas one doesn't surprise me, but the Sacramento County definitely does. What is in Sacramento? I would have thought that some of the biggest places would have been either in Utah or even somewhere maybe Pacific Northwest, like Oregon, maybe Washington, but Sacramento County, interesting. Hawaii residents are spending on average 42.06% of their income on rent, which is the highest of any state according to a Forbes home analysis. California ranks second, but at a much smaller proportion of income going toward rent, 28.47%. And I think this is important for people to understand. It's the percentage of a household's income that goes towards housing is what's really difficult here. They call them ALICE families, and we definitely qualify as an ALICE family, where we're asset limited, income constrained, but we're employed. And it's tough when you're paying that large a percentage of your income just for something as basic as housing. But when you see that gap between where Hawaii's at and where California is at, I mean, that's a huge percentage gap. And now granted, I know that California is a big state, so you can take a lot of data points versus Hawaii being isolated and small, but still that gap between 47 or 42% and 28%, that's pretty big. Estimates from the American Community Survey showed that in 2011, there were about 296,400 Native Hawaiians in Hawaii and about 221,600 on the mainland. Just a decade later, those numbers flipped. In 2021, there were about 309,800 Native Hawaiians in Hawaii and about 370,000 in other states. There's no Hawaii without Hawaiian, said Honolulu City Council Chair Tommy Waters, who is Native Hawaiian. His 5 siblings have all moved to the mainland. That's just incredibly sad to me, that Hawaiians can't afford to live in Hawaii. Oh yeah, it is kind of sad that there's more Native Hawaiians outside of Hawaii than there are in Hawaii. And I think it's a very interesting statistic. But the comment about there's no Hawaii without Hawaiians, I think that's a very interesting discussion point. I think that, I'm trying to figure out how to say this the right way. Now, obviously, Hawaii will still continue if, let's say, all Native Hawaiians left Hawaii. Hawaii would still be Hawaii. Now, it wouldn't be as rich. And I think that connection to that Native Hawaiian culture would obviously be lost. I mean, we'd have westernized versions of it, but it wouldn't be authentic. And I think that you lose that authenticity without Native Hawaiians here. Las Vegas was desirable to the Purdy's because it's a popular vacation destination for Hawaii residents, which meant family would likely visit often. Also, the cost of living is significantly lower. So in 2017, they uprooted their family and moved to Henderson, a Las Vegas suburb in Clark County, where they could afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,000 a month. Now, it's true that a lot of local people like to go to Las Vegas. I don't understand why, but it's true. And the cost of living there in Vegas is significantly lower. I've never been to Henderson, but it sounds like a nice place to be. But the $1,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, now that would be cheap, and I wish that we had prices like that here. Now I know it's totally unrealistic. You probably could get maybe a studio, or maybe you could split a 1-bedroom, or maybe a older 2-bedroom for $1,000 with like 3 roommates. If they had prices like that right now and they're available, probably pack up and just go live there for $1,000 a month. Because of this family, we need the extra space, and 2 bedrooms would be perfect. So yes, please sign me up. I just don't want to have to go to Las Vegas to get those affordable prices. So skipping ahead, but even though they were nearly 3,000 miles from home, Hawaiian culture was all around them, thanks to many other transplants. The Las Vegas area is full of restaurants catering to Hawaiian taste and cultural events expressing Hawaiian pride. And of course, you know, Zippy's gonna be up there, which I think is gonna be huge for the locals up there. But I love how they point out other transplants. Now, I know the term transplant in Hawaii, I don't even know where that came from, but it's just been this term now that I think people are using for people like from the mainland or other countries that just move here. But I never grew up using that term, but it's a term that I think we're just starting to use right now. But I think it's so interesting now that Hawaiians or people from Hawaii, or both, are now the transplants, and they're going to a brand new place where there is a culture that they're unfamiliar with, that they may feel uncomfortable with. And in fact, in Nevada and in the Las Vegas area, there is a Native American tribe. And I wonder, just thinking about how transplant is used, when we talk about people transplanting and as transplants and coming here and them learning the culture, or should they learn the culture, I wonder now that, as worded here, Hawaii people are transplants. Do we, when we are transplanted, do we go and learn about those other cultures while we're there? I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be curious to know if any of these people who moved to Las Vegas from Hawaii took the time to learn about not just Vegas, but the Native Americans who originally settled there, or their culture beyond just the casinos. Anyway, just something that I thought about. A 3-bedroom home price at $300,000 in a Las Vegas suburb would be $1.2 million in Honolulu. Back home, you either had to have your home passed down to you or have to work 4 jobs. Yeah, it is $1.2 million, and you gotta knock the thing down and then rebuild. And so you're just basically buying the land. I've seen it so many times for homes that are being sold here. You're basically just buying the land. And yeah, it feels like more and more the only way that people of my generation who grew up here, who don't have family help that are super wealthy, the only way that they're ever going to be able to afford a home is either it being passed down or just working multiple jobs. And I mean multiple as in, like, that's right, 4 full-time jobs. A few months after they moved, about 20 other relatives, including Purdy's mother, uncle, and sister, followed them. Over time, it just became exhausting trying to make ends meet. It's heartbreaking. That's the choice we make. The majority of us, I think, we just got priced out of home. 20 other relatives, dang, that's a lot. I mean, it makes sense, right? The whole family just ends up moving because you get one person that goes and then you tell everybody, oh my gosh, it's so cheap, it's so easy here, come on, you gotta come up here, you gotta come up here. And meanwhile, you're back home here in Hawaii and you're thinking, I don't want to move. And you keep trying and trying and trying. They keep telling you, come on, it's so good. Come on, it's so cheap. No income tax. Come on, it's so cheap. And you're like, no. But I think eventually when you have a relative up there who's you see encouraging you and inviting you and almost like recruiting you to come up, I think it's hard after a while to resist that. And that becomes more and more appealing, which doesn't surprise me here, but 20, it's kind of plenty. As it was stated here, over time it just became exhausting trying to make ends meet. And I think that's probably a feeling that a lot of people have. You know, if you're born and raised here versus someone who moved here from the mainland or somewhere else, it's a little bit different, that exhaustion at least, and how you respond to that exhaustion. If you're from the mainland and you move here and you feel that exhaustion, that grind that you just, it's too hard, I don't want to live here no more, you can go back to where you're from. You can go back home, which is probably somewhere a lot cheaper than being in Hawaii. So you always have a place to return to. It's different though when you're a local and you're going through that same exhaustion and that grind, because this is your home. This is where you're from. And so instead of going back home, you are home, and that's the expensive place. So you end up having to move away to escape that that feeling, that almost suffocating feeling sometimes. And that's the hard part. That's the part that for me, if I ever had to make that choice, I would feel very hurt that I feel like I have to leave. It kind of reminds me of the book The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, where the animals and all those wonderful creatures were sent away because the place was becoming so polluted. Now, I'm not saying that's becoming so polluted here, but the point is that scene where he just sends everybody away in hopes that they could then come back one day when things are all better. I feel like that's how I would feel. I would feel sad that I have to go. And it's not by choice, but it's just more just to make my life a little easier. Las Vegas's affordability was liberating, she said. With cheaper rent and groceries and no state income tax, she could stretch her paycheck further. We were just living it up in the dollar store, she said. In Hawaii, that type of store doesn't exist. And that's not to say that everything about Las Vegas or Nevada is great, but yeah, cheaper rent and groceries, no state income tax, they'd be nice. But I do want to correct something here. In Hawaii, we do have a dollar store. It's called Daiso, except it's not a dollar like in Japan. It's like $3 and more. So, 3 times as much. But hey, at least we got dollar store. In 2019, Doreen Hall Van decided to move to Las Vegas to be closer to her daughter, who had moved to Seattle for more job opportunities. On Facebook, she gushed about how much cheaper everything was, from bread to rent. But she started to worry about staying connected to her culture while living far from home. When we move off island, we are disconnected because we're not on our land anymore. But in her new home, she found she has more time and less stress. I was so busy back home trying to make a living. When I moved to Las Vegas, it really put a pause in my life and I could see things a lot clearer. And I think this is a really important point, and I'm glad that she mentioned what she said in this part. I didn't read all of it, but I think it's very important to identify the connection that people do have to Hawaii, particularly Native Hawaiians and the connection to the Aina and the land. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I do want to ask whether that's worth it. Is that trade-off worth it for what she's describing here, so that she doesn't have to be stressed out all the time and she has more time for herself? Is that worth the trade? That, yeah, you're not connected to the land in Hawaii, but by moving somewhere else, your life's a lot easier. And I guess that's something that every person will have to decide for themselves. But to me, it sounds like that was the best choice for her. In the home stretch, here we go. But in August 2021, exactly 4 years after leaving Hawaii, the Purdys moved back home. Purdy said that his wife wanted to take care of her mother, who began showing signs of dementia. Their daughter also got accepted to Kamehameha Schools, a highly selective and relatively affordable private school system that gives admissions preference to students with Hawaiian ancestry. The family moved to Kapolei to share a 5-bedroom house with their extended family. Now that the Purdys have 3 children, they rent 2 of the bedrooms. Purdy is trying to find time to take his kids to hula lessons. Since moving back, the family has only been to the beach once. It's a grind, it's hard, it's really expensive, he said, but I also feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be right now. So it's kind of an interesting twist to this article, something that I didn't quite expect in the beginning, that they actually moved back to Hawaii. But I think the reasons are very relatable. To take care of one's family back home in Hawaii. And that's something that a lot of people are going to have to figure out for themselves and their family if they decide to move away for whatever reason and their parent stays here in Hawaii. It's one of the reasons why I decided to move back. Not that my parents needed care, but I could already see that if I decided to live on the mainland, I would miss all these years that I could have with them before they would need that care. And really, if I had a family up on the mainland, how hard would it be for me to fly back home to care for them when my work and my wife, my kids, they're all up on the mainland? I can't bring them all here because that's going to uproot them and they never would have experienced Hawaii. So they would be like foreigners here. I guess we'd all be kind of considered transplants. I know for me that was the right choice to do it at that moment. And I'm glad that I had these 10 years that I've been in Hawaii since I've been back with my parents to be able to see them, enjoy them, and also with my brother and other extended family. But I'm glad that I was able to be back here. So that's a great reason, one that is very relatable to moving back. And of course, getting to Kamehameha Schools is also great for the daughter. It's a great private school, very affordable, like they said. And being Native Hawaiian, there's a lot of opportunities for post-grad stuff where you can go off to college and have access to all these wonderful scholarships. So I hope that the daughter and the rest of the family take advantage of that. This time they moved to Kapolei instead of Waipahu, so even further west, and they share a 5-bedroom house with their extended family. But I do wonder how much that rent is now. If they're paying $2,300 back then for a Waipahu house with 4 bedrooms, now that they're in a 5-bedroom in Kapolei, boy, it's gotta be still pretty expensive. But I think it's really great, you know, trying to find time to take his kids to hula lessons. And yeah, since moving back, they've only been to the beach once, which is kind of sad because in Kapolei, the beach is like, boom, it's like right there, you know? But again, I completely understand. For us, the beach is about, I don't know, less than 5-minute drive, but we haven't been in a while, especially since we got back from our trip to Japan, just been totally busy this past month. So I understand that, yeah, sometimes even though you're so close to the beach, the proximity doesn't really matter because it's more about just the time. Because when you come back home from work or it's a Friday and you're just so tired, it's like the last thing you want to do is pack up the car with all this stuff and go to the beach, try to find parking, and then drag everything out and deal with the sand, and then afterwards shower, and it's a lot of work. Then you gotta go work again. So I completely understand. And the fact that it closes with, I also feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be right now. I think that's really great. I do wonder if they're gonna move back to the mainland though. And I guess that depends on how long they'll be caring for the mother who is showing signs of dementia, and if they want to stay because the daughter's in Kamehameha schools. But I do wonder if they have the opportunity to move away again or are thinking about it, will they take that chance knowing now how cheap it is? You know, it's one thing to hear people talk about how cheap it is, but you just stay back here in Hawaii. But something else when you actually go up there and you move and you get to experience all of that, almost like that freedom. And then you come back here and you're like, oh man, it's hard again, you know? And just thinking about my experience being away, you know, there's a lot of things that I do miss about the mainland. You know, I know it's different, I know. But being local boy, I there's some stuff about Colorado, about Oregon, about California that I miss. You know, the weather, some of the people, some of the food, and just that ability to be able to go anywhere in the country, just drive. The exposure to different experiences, you just don't get that here in Hawaii. And of course, there's so many wonderful things in Hawaii, and I try not to take them for granted because being away, I know that pull, that draw to want to come back home. But when you're back home in Hawaii, sometimes it's really hard, and you look at how other people are doing, or you see your friends or family and they're starting to move away, and you're just kind of thinking, oh man, is that what we should do? I talked about this before on what we're planning on doing, whether we're going to stay here in Hawaii. The plan is that we're trying to make it work here, that we're going to stay, and I think we'll be okay. But I know a lot of other people are going to struggle. I mean, that's just how it is now for a lot of people. I wish it wasn't like that. So I hope that what this article shows people is that it's really hard to move away. It's not just a financial thing either. I mean, there's definitely that part where, oh yeah, of course, everything is so cheap. Oh, the cost of living is so good, and why didn't we do this sooner? Oh my gosh, my quality of life is so high. Of course, there's gonna be that, and that financial reason is a pretty strong one. But I think it's also a cultural thing. There's no other place like Hawaii. You know, there's no other place where you walk down the street and you see like a mix of people, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, like Filipino, like there's no other place that you can see that. Maybe an airport, I don't know, but like you don't get to see that anywhere else, and it doesn't feel weird. That's just how it is here. I think if it was a purely financial decision, a lot of people would just end up picking up and leaving. But there's family, there's culture, there's food, there's so many other things here in Hawaii that keep people here, that when people do make that decision to leave, it's really, really difficult, and it's really tough. It's like a tearing of a part of them that they leave back here because of where they grew up, all the experiences that they had. And for someone who only knew Hawaii as their home, moving to somewhere else, and to me, that just would be extremely difficult. So thanks for watching, and aloha.